Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. This is the finale. We are going through chapter by chapter summaries. We are now up to chapter 3. The format is Yogeshwar is going to give his summary of the chapter, and then you're welcome to make your comments or ask questions. Please be concise. We got 18 chapters to go. We want to do it in about 2 to 3 meetups. So please be concise. You can bring up anything that you want to bring up. Keep it related to Gita and keep it concise. All right. So let's get started. Yogeshwar.
Atha Tritiyodhyayah. Now we're in the place whereby Krishna has laid out what Karma Yoga is and what Jnana Yoga is. What normally happens. For us, we have been through the whole of the Gita. So there is a context we have. But not normally happens. A person who is first listening to Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, there's this way of seeing a similarity within whereby you don't get the differences. That's a problem also. And then there's also another perspective whereby they make it so different that they don't see the similarities between them. So both perspectives are going to be talked about in this third chapter. Arjun is now asking that if you're saying that karma is greater, Jayasi chet karmanaste. If you're saying that Jnana Yoga is better than Karma Yoga, then why are you telling me to do this type of karma? And if you tell me to do any type of karma, I would do, but this is like war, and it's the greatest war. In consideration, it's really hard to take a decision here. Why should I even be involved in a war? This is not just any type of karma. That's what Arjuna is trying to say. And another thing also is that your words, your sentences, they are just mixed up for me because I can't really understand them. I can't get through them. Why are you saying sentences that are just mixed up? Should I now do Karma Yoga or should I do Jnana Yoga? Tell me one of them, like just point out one and tell me what I should do. And this is the normal type of doubt we have. What we try to do is like, tell me whether Atman is there, like yes or no. And that is normally like not the case of how you understand anything. How you understand something, for it to be there or not, you have to experience it, that this is how it is. Then we can say that it is. So Krishna is now going to take Arjuna on the journey that how to understand what Karma Yoga is and what Jnana Yoga is. So Krishna is now telling Arjuna that in this whole world, there are two, Dradhanishtha. Yeah? And I am not saying this, like all the Rishi Munis and all that, they've just been pouring that in the tradition. What you should know is those who are in Sankhya, they should do Jnana Yoga. And those who are yogis, they should do Karma Yoga. That is the distinction. Now, for you, Arjuna, so there is a way that Krishna wants to tailor it to Arjuna because he wants Arjuna to understand. So for you, Arjuna, I would say that Naishkarmya cannot come without doing karma. You have to do karma And then you realize what Neshkarmya is. Just by sannyas, like just by living karma, because for Arjuna, what does sannyasa mean? So that's the literal meaning Krishna is giving Arjuna here. Just by sannyasa, just by living the karma, you cannot get to Neshkarmya. How will you? And this is what Krishna's philosophy is. What you want to go beyond, you have to go through it and past it. You can't go beyond something without getting through it. You can't run away from something and expect to get past it. That doesn't happen. And also another thing, that you cannot stay even a second, even a moment without doing karma. So why not perfect your karma to the ultimate? And when you perfect your karma to the ultimate, then you reach that beyond karma step, like the neshkarmya step. Then also, everything that happens in this world comes out of karma. Nothing comes out of just sitting back and doing nothing. So whatever you're seeing in this world, even the good and even the bad, it all comes out of karma. Then also another point I want you to consider is that I myself do not have any kartavya in this world. Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. I do not have anything to do. Look at me. Then, if you're saying that sannyasa is better, tell me what I should do. Now, Krishna is asking Arjuna the question now. Look at me and tell me what I should do, because I have nothing to do. I have nothing to run away from, and I have nothing to go towards. I have nothing to fear. And also, I don't have any karma, kartavya remaining to do. Like if this doesn't happen, something will be remaining in me. So what he is saying now is that still I am doing karma. Look at me. The fact that I am doing karma, yet I have nothing else to do, and I am giving you this knowledge. So follow me, follow my footsteps. And also, if I do not do karma, this is also another perspective. If I do not do karma, then even other people, even though I have reached and I do not need to do karma, the other perspective of it is that other people who are walking behind me, because I know what they hold me onto, like I am like even more than a role model. I am even more than a person to look up to. I am like Paramatma to many. And Bhishma actually says this out after the war, that yes, I have seen Krishna as Paramatma. So I am Paramatma to many. What if I stop doing karma? Then even those who are following my footsteps will leave karma. One thing to note here is that even though you're doing karma, jnana yoga, Krishna is saying that you have to do karma of any kind. Then, if a person like Krishna leaves karma yoga, what will happen is that even those who are doing karma yoga will not be able to get to the siddhi, rather they will just leave karma at the stage that they are in, which would be the wrong way of living karma. And that Krishna is saying that Utsideyuri me loka na kuryam karma chedaham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyamima praja. Well, you were saying that if you do this type of karma, which is a war, so many people would die. I am saying that if I do not do karma, then so many people would die in relation, in abstract, let's say, because So many people would die because they would be derailed from the path of the ultimate just by not doing karma. So look at it in a perspective. If you're walking on the path and I am not doing karma, then even people who are behind me won't do karma. I will derail so many people from the ultimate path. Whereas if a person dies right now, he's not derailed from the ultimate path. He just has another chance to go onto the path. So which one is more weighing? Should you do karma or should I live karma? Arjuna is also in that dilemma that he's looking at the karma in the perspective of sannyasa, like you should leave karma, and he's looking at the karma in perspective of the sannyasi who goes out of the normal, of the norm, and says that I want to such and such type of karma just to get to Brahman. Well, Krishna here is saying that Shreyan Swadharma Viguna Paradharmat Swanushtita. Your own karma that calls from your swabhava is more important. However, derailing it may look at this point in time, however destructive it may look at this point in time, yet it is the best thing to do. Swadharme nidhanam shreya. What you're really good at, what takes your concentration, what allows you to be yourself, it is better to die in that situation. Paradharmo bhayava. Paradharma, another person's dharma, is bhayava. It is more destructive than it may look at this point in time. Then Arjuna is also asking that if people already have this type of knowledge, then why does anybody do papa? Why does anybody do bad deeds? And like, for example, they don't even want to do it, yet they do it. So Krishna is now giving an example, which I would put in another example into that when Krishna is now giving an example of when you're riding a bicycle downhill, what happens is you first have to do paddling. You have to pedal it, yeah, one or two times. But then after that, when you're going downhill, it just goes. So that is the situation of our minds right now. We give it one or two situations and it goes into that auto mode. Like now it doesn't need anybody to paddle it. That is the karma, esha krodha. That is the karma and the krodha. Because they are evolving from gunas. For that reason, and the gunas are not like they come in one moment and they leave the other moment. The gunas are there. They come gradually and they go gradually. And that is a really significant point in there. For that reason, you can manifest some gunas more than the others. For that reason, you can work on some qualities for a long period of time and you can see them cultivating within yourself. So if you want to cultivate anger within yourself, and if we go back in our life, we can see this, that any anger that we are showing right now, there is a point whereby if a same situation happened, we would not get angry. But then we have cultivated it over time, that this is the way to react in a normal situation. We have made it normal for ourselves. So that is the autopilot mode that we have put ourselves into. Krishna is now continuing that you should go into the indriyas. You should control them and you should have them within your control. Indriyani paranyahu. Indriyabhya param manaha. But there's something more subtle than that, which is the manas, which is the mind. Manasastu para buddhi. Even more subtle than thought, there is the intellect. Buddhe paratastu saha. Then even there is something more subtle than the intellect, which Krishna is not mentioning at this point in time. Evam buddhe param buddhva sanstabhyatmanamatmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kama rupam durasada. If you know that which is beyond the buddhi, then you will know who you truly are. If you know what is beyond the intellect, you'll get to know who you truly are, and you'll be able to look at it in perspective. And you'll also not be in autopilot mode. You will have all the control that you need. No bad deeds will evolve from you at that point in time.
Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. So folks, if you would like to comment on this chapter, or if you have any questions, please go ahead. I want to say a couple of things here. First is the point that Yogeshwar makes about being able to distinguish between Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, the requirements for each of them, being able to distinguish them, and then being able to see connections between them. Jnana Yoga is about focus on the center. Karma Yoga is about doing the work in the world, but at a very deep, in a very deep way, they are one. They're connected to each other. They build on each other. But you need to be able to separate them, see their natures, study their natures, be able to practice their natures individually, and then see the connection between them. The second point, there is a term that Yogeshwar used that I really like, that you have to be willing to go through it and past it. Gita is not about giving up the world. It is operating in the world, and operating in the world in a manner where you can still remain centered is what this is about. All the emotions, all the thoughts, all your actions, you're going through them, you're taking them, you're experiencing them, but you persist in the midst of them. There is something, there is a witness that persists in the midst of them. So it's about saying yes to the core of you. It's about saying yes to your center, and it is about saying yes to the world. It is not saying this versus that. It is yes, it's a profound yes to both. So that's what I wanted to say. Next up is Evanik, followed by Joe. Evanik.
Yeah, so I wanted to speak about when Yogeshwar was saying anger is cultivated over time. Are you talking about the emotion anger or anger as the response?
So look at it from this point of view, that the first time somebody was like doing something bad to you, you're like, yes, you get a bit angry, and then you're like, should I be angry? There's that perspective that, should I be angry or not? That perspective is there. However, when you make yourself into autopilot mode, what happens is that being angry is a given. Like when somebody acts upon you in a certain way, without being angry, you cannot, like, you have to leave it, you have to get it out. That's what happens at times. What I was pointing out to was that gradual progress that you make from not being angry, like through the years, yeah, not at one point in time, through the years, being little angry and then getting to the peak of anger. There are those gradual progresses that you make. And then when you want to get control over your anger, you have to also do it gradually. You can't do it like right now. You have to do it gradually, slowly by slowly. It's like now the bicycle has been in autopilot mode for a long time. If you stop it instantly, it will turn over. So you have to stop it slowly by slowly. Just give the brakes slowly by slowly.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. I want to make. Let me go with Joe first. Joe, go ahead.
No, I mean, I just was going to make a brief comment, and I think Yogeshwar actually covered it beautifully. It's just understanding your role in the world. In this particular, if it's a path of action, it's karma yoga. If it's for knowledge, it's jnana yoga. That's my understanding of it. So understanding it, but the other point that I would probably make is the importance of the gunas in this process as well, that you remain in balance, that you're not necessarily ruled by your passions. And they talk about that a little bit in chapter 3. And then, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That was my main takeaway. I did have a couple of other points, but they're kind of a little bit scattered.
Sure. I want to make one more point. The point that Yogeshwar made about autopilot, that we are on autopilot. I think that's a very profound point. It's a really core observation that runs through Gita, that we are creatures of habit. We get used to doing certain things, and we are pretty much sleepwalking through life. We are not conscious. Living at the center, being at the center, consists of being conscious, being aware of what you're doing, how. So it is about having a perspective instead of being driven by your habits, by your emotions, by reaction to what is outside or inside. You are being proactive, you are being alive, you are being awake, you are being aware. That distinction is something that we'll keep coming back to. Next up is Brian or Penny, or both. Oh, sorry, just a second. I have to unmute everybody. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. I just wondered, because as I think about karma yoga, it seems to me that like the beginning of the practice is that you realize that, you are something other than just your ego, your physical person, that, you have a place in the world, and that you begin to see that your actions aren't just for you yourself, that you're acting well, kind of as for the Atma, or something, that you're starting to act for the world because you're part of the world.
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, so now there are two perspectives about it. One perspective is where Krishna is wanting Arjuna to understand why the perspective of karma comes in, why you have to do karma. Now, these two terms are really hard to get to, because there are times when Krishna is telling Arjuna, do not leave karma, hold on to it. And then there are times when Krishna is trying to allow Arjuna to grasp onto karma yoga from the karma. Now, these two things are different, like just action and karma yoga. Those two things are different. So when Krishna is saying not leave karma because it also helps in the world, or you can't stay without doing karma, then you're holding on to karma. That's fine. He's giving reasons why not to leave karma. He's giving reasons to enter karma. Now, entering karma yoga is a different perspective, whereby Krishna is now telling him that get to the Atman now. Like, do karma while you're fully aware, not just doing karma while you're in auto mode, in autopilot mode. Those two perspectives are different, and to differentiate them within the whole of Gita is also an ongoing task. Like, you can't really do it in each and every verse, like spot on. What happens is there's some places where Krishna will have to allow Arjuna, just even by a split second, just to understand that karma is useful. And then the next second, Krishna will go on to like karma yoga, like, therefore do karma yoga.
Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Okay. Next up is Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I just actually have a brief question thinking this through. What are the negative social consequences of ignoring your dharma? Like what is the what happens? Okay, that's my question.
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, so ignoring your dharma, there's so many things that happen because you've ignored your dharma. What will happen is that you will not be able to do something so well, because your dharma is something that you do so well. It is something that comes from inside. And then another thing is that because now you'll have to do something in the world, what will you have as like a gift for you doing karma? An intention. You have to have an intention in the world. How will your decisions be made? They will be made by things in the world that now you'll want, because you can't make a decision from your perspective. You'll have to make a decision from the world's perspective. For example, people are running for money, so I should also do something that gives me more money. If people are running about fame, I should do something that gives me more fame, and that will give me satisfaction. So those are the two perspectives you should look them from. Now, another thing is that you won't be able to do that karma that needs intention so well, like your own karma as well, like your own dharma, which comes from inside. You will not be able to flower. Like, it's just like, what will happen if a lotus is brought into the garden and grown? It won't be able to grow like a lotus itself. Neither will it be able to grow like a rose, because that's not the place for it to grow. That's what will happen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Shall we go to chapter 4? Go ahead.
Atha chaturthodhyayah. Now Krishna is explaining this, that this is not something new, I'm telling you. This has been brought from tradition. And the perspective we have towards tradition these days is so like, if it's from tradition, then we do not accept it. That's like, no. But look into tradition. If something has been there for like 2000 years, 10,000 years before, and it has been working, then try to look for the perspective that it has been working from. Why has it been working for 10,000 years? And then also consider, if we are doing something new, then will it be able to go for generations, or will it just be okay for us? So that's also something that tradition gives us. You have a perspective, and sometimes it's not only tradition, something that goes on for like 10,000 years, 2,000 years. It is something that integrates with people's swabhava. Something that goes on for 10,000 years can't only be at the brim. Rather, something that may have evolved like particularly like 50 years, 100 years, it may just be at the brim. I'm saying may because not everything is easily distinguishable. Something that is only 100 years, 50 years old is easily into the category of like, may it be something that is only at the brim, may only be able to allow karma just for some intention that is from the outside, or maybe for one perspective of people. Rather, Krishna is now saying that if this has worked for so many people, it has a deep integration into the Atman, into the consciousness. It can't be something that is just at the brim, and it works over traditions, over so long a period of time. That is why Krishna is saying that this is not something I have brought up. This is something that has been coming from traditions. And I am telling you this. Why? Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam etaduttama. Because you are a person who has that much devotion, and you are a person who is my friend and will understand this. Now Krishna has this question. Arjuna has this question that you and I, we have been here just so many years. Like we have been here this many years. We can calculate them. We know how many years. But how can you say that you made this tradition prevail? How could you say that? Yeah? That you told this at the beginning. How does that happen? So Krishna now goes on that we have been over and over this in so many births and deaths that have come to us. This is the cycle of birth and death, which we have gone through so many times. However, your perspective is that you are not aware of your births and deaths. There is also one perspective that nature has its way of allowing us to forget some things that are not important to us, like previous births and deaths. For example, even those things that we did before 5 years of age, they are fed. And those that we did like 3 years of age, those are like, we don't even have them. We don't even have the memory of them. Krishna, therefore, is saying that I do remember what has happened over the births that I have taken. And the other perspective is that is why I'm saying that Atman doesn't die. It is only the body that dies. I have prevailed over all these births and deaths. Then you may have a question. Why do I even take any birth? If I do not need to take any birth, I already have the jnana. I already have the karma yoga. Krishna is saying, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever there is a need, whenever in the world, and Krishna is talking at such a large perspective, not a small perspective like dharma here and now. Krishna is talking at a large perspective like the dharma of the world. And dharma, dharyate iti dharma, that which keeps the world at its own pace, that which keeps the world. And for us, materialistically, is that gravity keeps the world. But then think about what keeps the world at par. There are those cultural backgrounds that keeps the world as it is. And if some things like tradition, some perspectives of tradition, I'm not talking about the weeds of tradition, but those perspectives that have kept the tradition ongoing, if they are taken out of perspective now, what happens to people? And we can also think about this in the perspective of Nietzsche, because he says that, oh yes, tradition has gone at one derailing. We know that. But then look at his other perspective, that now we have to get something back up. Yeah? We can't just leave it like that. We have to get something that works for traditions. It can't be just for us here and now. It has to be something that goes on for traditions, for like years and years to come. So even from that perspective, that which keeps, like, leave alone the weeds that Nietzsche said that we have to get rid of, but that which we have to evolve again. So he also has that perspective that if something doesn't evolve again, then we are going into a derailing. That which keeps the world, dharyate iti dharma, at par. Because not only physical things keep us at par, some moral codes, some cultural codes, some intellectual perspectives, some conscious perspectives keep us at par. That Krishna is saying that whenever that comes into derailing, I have a birth and I keep dharma at utmost perspective. And you should also know that my janma means my birth and my actions, they're all divya. They're not like any other person who will do any other action. Krishna is now continuing that I do all the karma, but karma doesn't touch me at all. That is how divya it is. If you know my karma in that perspective, then also you, because only a person who can do such karma can know it. So if you know it, it's both sides. So if you can do it, you can know it. If you can know it, then you can also do such type of karma. Krishna is going on one perspective that if you know the type of karma I am doing, itimam yobi janati, karma bhir nasabadhyate. If a person knows me like that, he doesn't get attached to any type of his karma. What is karma? Kim karma, kima karmeti, kavayo pyatra mohita. Yeah? What is karma and what is akarma? It's really hard to pass out. Like you can't really decode it, because that is how subtle it is. You have to know what akarma is. You have to know what karma is, and you have to know what vikarma is. If you do not know those three perspectives of karma, then you do not know what karma is. You do not know what action means. Because if we only take action for what it is, like what we know it to be, then we do not really know action. They are those actions that at least we know two perspectives. Those actions that take us towards the good and those actions that take us towards the bad. That's fine. But Krishna is saying also know the other perspective. That type of action whereby both action is there, but the attachment is not there. So both things are there in one. The action is there and the attachment is not there. Well, somebody can be inactive, like just passive, and he may not have any attachments. That's fine, because he's not doing any action. And somebody who is doing action may be so much attached to what he's doing. Now get both perspectives here, that action is there, but attachment is not there. So if you know three of those perspectives, how karma can be, how vikarma can be, and how akarma can be, then you know what karma is. If a person knows karmanya karmaya pashyad, akarmanicha karmaya, sabuddhiman manushyeshu, sayukta krishna karma. If a person can see that there is karma in akarma and there is akarma in karma, there is action in inaction and there is inaction in action. If you can see that, then that person is buddhiman. That person is really jnanavan. He really knows. That is the type of knowing Krishna is saying. Not having some concepts within yourself, not gathering some information. Krishna is saying, if you can really know the essence of karma, you'll know the essence of life, because that's what life is, in essence. Life is continuous karma, continuous action. That's what shows that you are alive. If you're not doing any action, if no action is happening within you, then you're not alive. And that's why Krishna is Purna Avatar. He was the most alive of all. Like, you cannot find any more alive person in the world. Like, he was so alive and he was doing all the karma that was needed, and yet he was not attached. If you can get such a perspective, then you know how akarma can be in karma. However, if we also know such perspectives whereby person may be saying that I am not doing any karma, I'm not doing anything, yet he is the one who is doing the greatest of karma. So if you can get both perspectives, then you really know karma. Then there's so many types of yajna. There are those types of yajna whereby Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Those types of yajna whereby you have to know that it is Brahma who is doing the yajna. It is Brahma into which you are doing the yajna. It is Brahma that you are using to do the yajna. And then even the action itself, the yajna itself, is Brahma Maya. That type of karma is what takes you to Brahman. Brahmaiva tena gantavya. There's no any other gati for him. He has already become Brahma. Then there are also so many other types of karma, of yajnas. Some types of yajnas may be about knowing that your senses are there, paying attention to them wherever they are going. Once you've paid attention to them, know the perspective. Who is paying attention to that? To the senses, to the sense objects. Normally now, your senses will come back, because what is the main perspective is attention. What captures your attention is where your senses go towards. If you can keep your attention to your senses, if you can keep your attention to your mind, then the senses will not need the sense objects. So that's also a type of yajna that curls back into your Atman. Another type of yajna is having the sun within you, and then taking each and every type of karma that you are doing outside and doing a yajna, literally, like mentally, I mean, putting all that karma into the sun that you have within yourself. That normally there's a tradition whereby at the end of the day, what you have to do is, I give all the karma to that Brahman who resides within me. When you do that, when you continuously do that, what happens is you are free of all your karma. You have not done any karma. Now, that should also be taken into each and every stage of your life, each and every moment of your life. If that can be taken into each and every moment of your life, I do a karma, but I put it into Brahman. I do a karma and give it to Brahman. Then also the other will happen as well. Brahman will do the karma and give it to you. Sometimes you will do karma so certainly well that you will not be able to understand how I did this karma. So that Brahman will do all the karma and just give it to you. So both perspectives happen. The others are about prana and apana, about pranayama. You do all the pranayama and you give it into Brahman. So this is the pranamaya kosha, breathing in and out and harvesting your concentration onto that. Others, they do abhyasa yajna, they do jnana yajna as well. And jnana yajna is important because Krishna has also said in the 18th chapter that jnana yajna tenaham ishtasyamiti me mati. Those who read the Gita and are able to understand the Gita, then I will consider them having done the jnana yajna, and I will keep them dear to my. So Krishna is saying that all these types of yajna are karmajan, all the ones that we have done above. However, there is something beyond that, which is jnana yajna, that Krishna is moving on to. If you have known that, then all the others will automatically fall out. And falling out doesn't literally mean that you will stop doing them. You will do them, but they will be neshkarmya. They will be like you're not doing any karma. That's how neshkarmya they will be. How do you get to that jnana? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. How do you get to that type of jnana? Then you will need a teacher to show you the way. Because getting onto that type of jnana, it can't be done without a teacher. Because he knows the way and he can lead you through the way. That, because if you've really been on the way, you know how many destructions there are on the way. You know how great the destructions are. So the teacher can give you the perspective. And three things that Krishna has mentioned here. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So those three perspectives are really important. First, you have to have the grace of bowing down, of revering to the Guru. Then you ask questions. So this is how it is in Indian culture. You don't first ask a question and then you bow down. No, you first bow down and then you ask a question. Then don't also infer that if I've asked a question, I'll get the answer directly. No. Sevaya, you've not yet done one thing. It's still missing. You still have to do seva. You still have to show the guru, the teacher, the master, that you really need the answer to your question. That is when the one who knows, Tattvadarshina, the one who knows, will impart that knowledge onto you. Because that knowledge is not just intellectual knowledge of you asking a question and you getting an answer. Rather, it's more subtle. It's not also of karma, just doing seva of the master. No. That's why all these perspectives are put into together. You have to bow down. You have to ask a question. Without asking a question, you don't have a direction. So you have to have a question. And you also have to have that question so deep within you that without the answer to that question, you can't live. It should be a question of life and death. When such a question arises, is when you'll be able to do seva of that master. And seva means every type of karma that master tells you to do, every type of action. Because there's so many types of actions we do not know, but they hold a lot of value within them. So you go through the process. Then, having gone through the process, the master will impart all the knowledge onto you. And that knowledge will not only be that one-time knowledge, but it will be all the knowledge that you have received on the way as well. He will tell you, yes, you've gotten it. And then you have gotten the knowledge. How is this knowledge now? What is this jnana? What will it do for you? Yathai dhansi samidhognir, bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. There is a fire and it feeds on its wood. To keep it lighting, you need the food, the wood. However, now what it will do is that however your gyan may have evolved, what your gyan will do, it's a fire, it will also burn out whatever it has been burning upon. It will burn out all the karma that you've done, and it will also burn out all that is not needed. It will just have what really needs to remain, what the Atman is, what the Brahman is. That is only what will remain. That is jnana. And there is no any other thing in this world that is above jnana. Nahi jnane na shadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. Tat swayam yoga sansiddha kalenatmana vindati. There is nothing that is more valuable than jnana itself. It is the most valuable. And even it's the most of the pure. It's the purest form of anything. For that reason, you have to go towards jnana. You have to pursue jnana. And what will jnana do? It will be that sword that will cut out all your doubts. When you have jnana, all your doubts just dissolve. They just get destroyed.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. Folks, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and type exclamation mark. My favorite part of this chapter is that statement where it is Brahma who is doing the yajna. You are putting your offering in Brahma. What you're using is Brahma, and the entire action is Brahma. Yogeshwar started talking in this chapter about that which keeps the world going. Dharma, the moral action, acting in accordance with eternal principles, acting in accordance with Brahma, which keeps things going. There is a union. Then he talked about this union between knowing and doing. Those who know it will do it. Those who actually do it, who are doing the dharma, will know it, or know it implicitly, will know it explicitly. When he's talking about learning, You can see this union of faculties. You start with revering. You need to have bhakti. You need to have devotion. You need to ask questions. And you need to do whatever it takes. You need to do service. You need to do action. All of those three things are needed. If you don't have reverence, question that you ask doesn't mean deeply enough to you. If you're ready to ask questions, but you're not ready to do what it takes, you're not going to learn. If you're ready to do what you want to take, what you need to do, but never ask questions, that's not going to be enough. So all those three things, and I just love how in Gita, the same themes, Sri Krishna keeps coming back to them in so many different ways. Last, I want to comment on this karma and akarma. It's really, really fascinating point, because it's actually very similar to the idea of wu wei, that you are doing the action, and you're doing the action from your center. Remember the concept of Sthita Prajna in chapter 2. Sthita Prajna means that your consciousness is steady, your wisdom is steady, no matter what you're doing. So there is a steady point within you while you're acting. So in that sense, that steadiness of consciousness, that steadiness, that witness, that center, you standing at the center, that's the unmoved part of you, because you remain at the center. At the same time, you're taking action in the world. So you are moving and not moving. So you're moving in your body, but the consciousness of you, there is a steadiness to it. It remains the same. So that's a very profound point. Okay, next we'll go with comments first. We'll start with Jeng, because she's not commented yet. Anybody who has not commented will get priority first. Feel free to keep commenting again and again, but we'll give priority to people who have not commented. So Jeng.
Yeah, I want to say is they mentioned about how when they learned, I can't remember exact the name of the yoga, you need to learn from another kind of like mentor. And it's actually remind me, because for some reason in my life, I didn't really have a mentor. So I trying to figure out myself. But then actually trying to figure out what the good architecture is, I interviewed award-winning architect, and he shared his experience with another famous architect. And I have observed also how many, like Franklin Wright was Louis Sullivan's apprentice. Every famous architect big back, there's another famous, maybe a little bit less famous one. So I think, so from what you're talking about, and I was thinking, the reason, you learn not just about the skills from this person, you learn is how he is, the being of himself. I think that's maybe, then I talk with that architect David Coleman, he's the award-winning architect local. And he was working with, I can't remember, one of the other Michael Graves. And I think and he mentioned about the excellency in design, how you get to the best. And the success of his story is like, since he started, he designed this very good building. He was published in magazine. Then he get all the good clients. Then that's the way of his success. And the reason he was able to do that, because he worked with another architect who always trying to achieve that excellency. And so he get that skill too. And he got that attitude. I think the attitude sometimes more important than the skill itself. I think that I understand that's the reason you have to learn from the mentor, not just the knowledge itself. It's like the being of this person, his thinking method, his working method, his whole, person. I
Wonderful.
think that's very critical. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. A great comment. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment on what is happening between a guru and a shishya? What is it that a shishya is learning from a guru?
Yes. So obviously we know that the shishya is learning, first of all, moral code, like how to live in society. So the guru will impart all that onto you. Another thing that the shishya is learning is knowledge, like shabdik knowledge, meaning the words and how to use them and what the meanings of that are. Then another thing that is even subtle is, we normally think about only these two perspectives, but think about another perspective as well, whereby you learn how to handle your own emotions when you're around the guru. It's not because you're looking at the guru and you should not show out your emotions. No, you look at him and you see how he is handling his emotions. Then you get to know that this is a way that things can be done. Why we're always so angry, or we're always in one type of perspective, is that we don't have a person who can show us that work can also be done without getting angry. Like that is also a way of getting work done. So when that happens, is that you see a real life example. Things are getting done, like big things are getting done, but you don't need anger, you don't need the attachment, you don't need the desires for things to be done. You get a living example of that. Then also, there's this perspective of giving the Brahman to you. Now, this is not something that literally you can give. Yeah? But while you're seeing the guru doing any action, while you're seeing him do his even daily routine, you see how he does it. You don't just see that you should do it, you should do a daily routine. No, you see how he does it. And the how he does it transfers the Brahman into you. The way he transfers the knowledge to you also transfers the Brahman within you. Because it's like, it's so subtle. He doesn't only transfer knowledge onto you or discourse onto you. No, he transfers his experience onto you of Brahman.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Next up is going to be Joe, followed by Evanik. Joe.
I can only build on a couple of things that have already been said because much has been covered. What I was going to say, he took my Wu Wei, analogy, comparison. And then the other thing that I really thought was important was the value of having a teacher or guru. So we kind of covered that as well. I think that this chapter reveals the complexity of action. We kind of builds on chapter 2, and when we're talking about action, we just know how it's not just actions for action's sake, and therefore you're doing it for that's just part of it. It's a very, very deep concept that's being communicated. One thing that kind of stuck out to me too is that the importance of this chapter also talks about a little bit the importance of ritual. And we talked about that a little bit last night, how habits actually impact the way you're able to control your desires. So that's a very important point. And you learn that, just as Yogeshwar is mentioning just now, from your guru. So some of these traditional forms of learning via scripture are mentioned in this chapter, or meditation, that these are things that are traditional in nature, but they're critical to the learning process. The understanding of the kind of the physical world as well comes out as well as in this chapter, in the sense that understanding nature itself is part of learning, and that's a critical part of moving beyond the sensory world. So that is that's also part of our action and part of our learning. And having a guru that can demonstrate all of that is, it makes life a lot easier. I'll just say that. But this is a very complex chapter.
Thank you, Joe. So on one of the things is that in this tradition, not just Indian tradition, but when you look at, for example, Aristotle's school, peripatetic school, Aquinas teaching, the way in which Lao Tzu was teaching, or Confucius is teaching his students, it is one-on-one interaction. It is one-on-one interaction. Even when you look at the family, right? See, the modern family is it's a small family. It is separated out. It's a nuclear family separated out from the bigger family. But all the faculties that we have, our reason, emotion, and action, are all integrated. And in order to learn them, in order to really learn them, you can learn it from other individuals. And the Guru Shishya tradition, you're really, I think Zheng was right, that you're really learning how to be, or the way in which Yogeshwar is showing is that the Guru is showing you Brahma. That is what is being shown, not a particular piece of information, not even knowledge as seen as saying, okay, how do I organize information? What he's giving you is wisdom, or something even deeper than that, the spiritual wisdom, and that is being shown through words, through actions, through regulation of emotions, practice of attention. All of it is being communicated to you and in the Indian context, the Shishya is staying with the Guru. So it is 24 hours a day for many, over a decade, is how the learning is taking place. And what you're learning is really about yourself. It's really about Brahma. It is really about Atma. And once you have gotten there, then the Guru says, okay, now you have learned something. So thank you, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'll just say that was beautifully put on explaining the complexity and the depth of action. Because in the beginning, action for action's sake, that's almost intuitive. This is much deeper. So what you captured is the nuances, the real knowledge underpinning what action for action's sake means. It's really well done.
Well, thank you, Joe. Next up is Marco. Oh, just a second. Let me make sure you can unmute. Okay. Thank you. Marco, please go ahead.
Can a guru be like just a normal person who just manages his anger well? That's
very good question. What is a guru, and who is who deserves to be a guru? Or I don't know how to put it. Who is a guru?
Yes, so in tradition, like who a guru can be is only a person who has reached Brahman. That is the only person who can be a guru. Then whatever rod he has used, because it's like what I have seen through all the traditions is that if it's good to hold on to a person who can manage his anger or can manage his emotions or has like the knowledge of the scriptures. It's fine to do that. But then what happens is that while you're in that process, there's nothing else that happens to you at a deeper level. Whereas if you're with a guru who has reached, you will do that. That's fine. You'll do that with him. Like you'll study the scriptures with him. You will know, like, you will know how to act out in different situations. You'll also get to learn how to like manage your emotions, but then he will give you something deeper as well, like within that. Because giving Brahman is not a different class. It's not like something you can teach differently. No, you have to show it within the perspective of either karma or jnana or bhakti. You have to show it within those perspectives. That is what a guru can do.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. So Marco, I want to add one thing. The concept of knowledge in the Indian context is very different than the concept of knowledge in the Western context. In the Western context, knowledge is regarded as knowledge of the world. So it is about knowledge of the periphery, particular aspects. How do you play music well? How do you do carpentry? How do you figure out mathematics? It is always seen as knowledge of particular things. When Gita talks about jnana or knowledge, they're talking about jnana, knowledge of Brahma or knowledge of Atma, of the deep knowledge of who you are and what the world is, and what is the eternal principle that is shaping the world. So the subject of knowledge is just that. That is the subject. And that's why only somebody who knows that is a guru. Because here it is not about, yes, the word guru transformed in English is used to simply refer to somebody who knows something about a field, who really knows something about a field. But the concept here is that of knowledge, which is self-knowledge, which is the knowledge of the Brahman, which is the knowledge of the universal or universal principles or universal cosmos. All right, next up is going to be Evanik.
Yeah, so something Yogeshwar said at the end of chapter 4, where he talks about jnana, and he talks about it cleaning you from the inside out. And for some reason, it made me think of the Bible. I think it's in Timothy, where he talks about the double-edged sword, that it pierces you going in and it cuts through blood and sinews and everything like that, and then you pull it back out, and it cuts going in and it cuts going out. And I always got it on some level, but when Yogeshwar was saying it tonight, I thought about it cleaning out everything that you don't need, or everything that doesn't serve you, like both inside and out. And when he was talking about action, and that action, like action inside and action outside, and that action being important not because of the fruits, but because what it does for you both inside and outside. And so it just all brings it together, that it's doing, like, when you're looking to get to your core, it's doing the work to get to your core. It's doing the work, but your fruit, you can't be attached to, like, what the work is going to get you. You're just doing the work and knowing that somehow you're going to get to the center of who you are. And maybe not even knowing the how you're going to get there, but knowing that doing the work, like learning about different, different paths and learning about different things that bring you more to your center is the path, is the life's work. And in a sense, it's life's journey. So I just thought about that.
Evening, that was beautiful. I love the analogy, because that is the analogy of the yajna. Whenever you're doing yajna, it is purifying. It is purifying when you're breathing in and you're breathing out. So each action which you're taking in accordance with the Brahma is serving to purify you. Each time you're taking in the Brahma, it is purifying. So I really like that. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment anything?
No comments.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Cheng. Cheng, you have additional observations.
I have two questions actually.
Please.
One is how to find the guru. The second one is this Brahma, is that similar to what Carl Jung was talking about, self?
Okay, let's take about finding guru. Let's keep it for a little bit later on. But I don't know if if Yogeshwar, if you want to deal with it, you can deal with it. But you can choose whichever ones you want to handle.
Yes. So normally when we talk about the self, so in the West, there's so many ways of talking about the self. One self they say is the ego, like the ego itself is the self, like what self you have right now. That is not the self you're talking about. So that's one side. Then there is also the self of the consciousness. Yeah. So that we put to the Atman. It's not yet Brahman. It's like your consciousness is your Atman. You see it, yes, but then it's not the ultimate that you're going towards. What you're going towards is Brahman. It's even more universal than that, because Atman is like your own consciousness in a way, but Brahman is something that is ultimately everywhere. It is like everywhere. That's the self you're talking about, like that deeper self that is there.
Wonderful. What I would say, Jeng, is that the concept of self of Carl Jung is inspired by Gita, but the concept in Gita, it has a dual concept of Brahma and Atma, both of which are very deep, very profound, and far more nuanced and far more explicated here. So I would invite you to look at them. He's clearly inspired by Indian philosophy, but I think these concepts are different. As you wish to see.
I wonder is that the Brahma is what he talked about, the group consciousness, no,
it's completely different.
Okay.
It is Brahma, if you want to so see, this is very difficult to do, because what happens is that the Western, by the way, I'm sorry about the abruptness, but the question, what happens is there are a couple of things. These are absolutely valid questions. Okay. The Western context is significantly different from the Indian context. And though somebody like Carl Jung is inspired by India, the way in which he thinks about it is very different. And there are many, many elements that come from a completely different source, and sometimes at conflict with the source. So it's a lot of work to try to understand. I like the approach, that Brian talked about yesterday, of saying that you try to immerse yourself. What he's saying is that he's trying to immerse himself in Gita and trying to get the picture of what it is saying on its own terms. He finds it difficult to integrate it with what is there. That is what the Western concepts are, but he's trying to understand it in its own terms. And secondly, he's trying to apply it and trying to see what works, trying to connect it to his own experience. That is a very deep way of understanding a set of concepts which are from a different culture and are very old. Because if you try to take a more advanced concept like collective consciousness from the West, and then try to understand this new thing, using that, what happens is that you only see some similarities from it, but what the differences are, you're likely to lose sight of. So it is much better to just immerse yourself in the ideas and try to connect it to your own experience, to your own life directly, and to see if these concepts are on one hand explain a pattern that you're seeing in your observations. And on the other hand, when you act on them, to whatever extent you can, see the results of it. So use it as, use your experience, use your life as a laboratory to connect, to see the truth of these things. It is, I'm not saying that it is impossible to relate concepts, but it's a lot of work, and you really need to understand each of the systems and how they are put together, what is the commonalities, what are the differences, in order to tease all of these things out. Thank you. All right, shall we go to number 5? Okay, sure.
Atha panchamodhyayah. Now Arjuna has this question, because in chapter 4, Krishna said that Shreyan Dravya Mayad Yajna Dhyana Yajna Paranta. Dhyana Yajna is above all the other types of yajna. Arjuna is now saying, I was talking about this from the start. Just allow me to leave this karma and just go on to sannyasa. Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam cha shansasi. Yat shreya etayorekam tan me bruhi sunischitam. You are talking about Jnana Yajna as being ultimate. I know it is ultimate. That's why I was trying to get out of this karma. But then again, in your words, you also bring karma yoga and put it above sometimes. So it's like, which one is above the other? Tell me now. Tell me one. Like, this is almost the same question that he asked in 3, but then you realize that Arjuna has now gone a bit deeper, like how Krishna is taking him on a journey. Questions can be asked from different levels, the same question at a different level of being. So you realize here, Arjuna is asking the same question, it may be for us, because we are reading the Gita, but it is from a different level of being, different level of understanding that is asking this question from. Because he has gone through these 2 chapters that Krishna has provided him with. Then Krishna is now telling him that sannyasa karma yogascha nishraya sakara ubho tayostu karma sannyasat karma yoga vishishyate. If I'm talking about you and the way you're talking about sannyasa, then both of them are taking you to the greatest. However, when I'm talking to you, I will say karma sannyasa. It's way better to do karma yoga than karma sannyasa in that perspective. Then Krishna goes on to say that both of them, Sankhya Yoga, which is Jnana Yoga, and the Karma Yoga, as we know it, both of them, if a person says that they are different, then he is no Pandita. He's just a small kid who has just started to learn what yoga and dhyana are about. When Krishna is saying this, we also know that Krishna has also in the past pointed out the differences, that this is how dhyana works and this is how karma works. Like in chapter 3, he says that for Sankhya, for those in Sankhya, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, Karma Yogena Yoginam. For those in Sankhya, they should take Jnana Yoga. For those in Yoga, they should take Karma Yoga. He knows the differences, but then now knowing the differences only doesn't allow it. Knowing the differences and the similarities now of both of them. Because where they take you is similar. The paths themselves are totally different. Ekamapyasthita samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. When you do one so well, you get the benefits of both of them. Now, understand this, where Krishna says you get the benefits of both of them. This is just a rough idea how I would point it out. In Jnana Yoga, you start with what the Atman is. You start with the intellectual perspective of it. And then when you get there at the end, yeah, you get to an understanding, and then you'll do the karma so right that you are doing it in alignment with who you truly are, in alignment with Brahman. So you start with the questions, the intellectual part, the Atman, and you reach the karma. However, in karma, what happens is you start with karma. You start with how should I do karma right? What is the right karma to do? Then as you move on, the last stage is when you know who yourself is, who Brahman is. So you get both perspectives from both of them. You get the karma perspective from both of them. You get the jnana perspective from both of them. That is how Krishna is saying that ubhayor vindate phalam. Nothing stays aside. And ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sapashyati. If you know that Sankhya and Yoga are one in unity, then you know. And that's the person who sees. The others, they do not see what is right. Then Krishna is moving on more onto Karma Yoga, because Krishna knows this is how Arjuna will understand it. This is how I am able to communicate to Arjuna. Whatever you're doing, you're seeing, you're listening, you're touching, you're smelling, or even you're eating, you're walking, and even while you're breathing, what should happen? You should know that I am not the one who is doing this. Something is happening, and try to decode what is happening. When you're trying to decode what is happening, ultimately you're getting to know who the person is who is decoding. And when you know who the person is who is decoding, who is behind all that, like who is doing all the action. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotiya dipyate nasapapena padmapatram yuvambhasa. A person who does all this karma, Brahmanyadhaya, knowing that it is Brahman who is doing all this karma, then any bad deeds, like we're talking about the war, nothing touches him. And in fact, it is not even a bad deed because he's doing while he's seated in the seat of Brahman. And what happens is Padma Patra Mivambas. He does all the karma, yes, but he stays Jalkamalavat. He stays like the lotus that is seated in the mud. It is in the water, it is in the mud, but the mud doesn't touch the lotus. The water doesn't touch the lotus flower. It stays unstained. That is how a person who is doing karma, situated in karma yoga, does karma. You should always do karma which is situated within Brahman. Because Brahman itself is nirdosham hi samam Brahma, tasmat Brahmani te sthita. Because Brahman itself is nirdosham, is sama, it doesn't have any flaws within itself, and it is all equal within itself. If a person does karma seated within the seat of Brahman, then even himself, he becomes flawless, even within his karma. When he knows that Brahman is the one who is doing all this karma, then everything is happening from Swabhava. Na kartritvam na karmani, lokasya srijati prabhu. He who knows, he doesn't get into the kartritva. Kartritva meaning the doer, being the doer. Na karmani. And he also doesn't get involved in the action. Another thing, another perspective to this is that two things go together always. The doer and the one who gets the fruits. Two things go together. If you are the doer, then you'll have to get the benefits or the flows of the fruits. However, if you are not the doer, it is Brahman who is the doer. And here I am meaning the ego. If the ego is not the doer, it's the Brahman who does everything, then you are not doing anything and you will not have to bear the fruits of any of your actions because it's Brahman who is doing all the actions. A person gets to Brahma Nirvana if he gets to know all this. And here, interestingly, Krishna mentions Brahma Nirvana in about 4 verses, the same one, again and again. And how he takes it is interesting. A person who is within his own Atman, he's getting the bliss from his own Atman. And Antarjyoti, he sees the sun within himself. He gets to Brahma Nirvana. Then a person who also being within Brahma Nirvana, he does all the karma from that stage of being within Brahma Nirvana. What happens is that he does always the right thing. There's nowhere he goes wrong. And he's always so concentrated within what he's doing. What happens to that person? All his 5 senses, they get back. They do not go into the world. They don't go into the peripheral. They just get back whenever they have free time. And a normal example that is given even in the text is that, you know how you throw a stone into the air, the stone stays within, the stone stays there within the skies only with the energy that you put into the stone. Then it just drops back. So the same way, you put your energy into doing something, into the karma. When that energy just, when that karma is done, that energy just comes back to you. So it's like throwing a stone into karma, and then that comes back into you. It's like throwing your attention towards karma, and that attention just comes back to you whenever it has nothing to go towards. That attention is constantly put towards Brahman. And he knows that Brahman is the Bhokta. Bhoktaram yudhya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. He knows that Brahman is he who is the one who gets all the fruits of all the karma, not me. So knowing that, shantim richati, sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. He gets to me and he gets to that bliss, that sukh, that shanti, that is that ananda that he always deserves.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. I want to point out just one very simple thing here. How these chapters are building on one another. How Arjun is asking questions. It seems like the same question, but it is deeper. He's taken on board everything that has been said, and now he's asking it in a different way, in a more fundamental way. And you can see that progress. The only other thing I would say is that I really love the metaphor of the lotus flower, that it is in the world and untouched by it. It is in the mud, and mud just flows off its leaves. And it is the consciousness, it is that center, it is the witness, which is doing the witnessing without being colored by, swayed by, flown away by the winds of what is happening around it. It remains steady, untouched. So lotus is a beautiful, beautiful example of that. All right, so opening it up for comments and questions on chapter 5. Go ahead and type exclamation mark if you'd like to comment or ask. Joe.
So yeah, I mean, I will be brief on this one. I think, just taught this chapter, when we went through it, is just the renouncing, of worldly pleasures, essentially. And it's a freedom that can be attained through Krishna. And I was thinking, the last, actually, I think it's verse 29, when a man has known me as the enjoyer of sacrifice and tapasya, I'm maybe saying that incorrectly, the mighty Lord of all worlds, the friend of all creatures, he comes by the peace. So it's this peace and tranquility once you start to understand Krishna. And I think that that's what really is, and as we discussed a little bit yesterday, it's letting go of all, it's letting go, but it's not really letting go of, it's the renunciation of, it's kind of, I don't want to use the word sacrifice, but the renunciation of worldly things. And it's the acceptance of the self. So that's what I think, really kind of communicates this chapter. it's true freedom is the best way to say it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. And Joe, you learned to say tapasya and all kinds of English, Sanskrit words pretty well. So
There were a couple of others I practiced, like I'm still afraid to say them.
wonderful. Yogeshwar, if you have any comments, you're welcome to make them. Okay. All right. Anybody else has anything? Otherwise, let's go to the next chapter because I want to cover as much. I want to keep the pace going. So Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Atha Shashtodhyayah. Krishna is now continuing this question about yoga and jnana. What happens between them? What happens between them is that what our normal understanding is that a person who is doing karma itself and a person who has left karma, that's the only two perspectives we know. Krishna is now giving us another perspective that if you have left the desire for the fruit, anashrita karma phalam, yet you're still doing the karma itself, you're still doing the action itself, then that is a person who is called a sannyasi. That is the same person who is called a yogi. Do not try to separate them so much. That is the same person. Because you'll be called a jnani and you'll also be called a yogi. It's not two different things. It's just that the perspective that they've gotten from is different. But if you can do karma and you do not have any desires, you do not have any desire for the fruits, then you are the sannyasi and you are the yogi. What you are calling sannyasa, also know that is the same thing as yoga. Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sannyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Every sannyasi is a yogi and every yogi is a sannyasi. Krishna is now fading the lines between these two. First, he made the distinctions between them, like in chapter 2. Really, like he said, this has been Jnana Yoga, this has been Sankhya Yoga, and now I am moving on to Karma Yoga. He made like a literal distinction of one verse between them. Now he's saying that he who is a sannyasi is a yogi. But we should understand the terms in which he's saying this. When a person has reached and is able to do such karma, however you've reached doesn't matter. But that is the peak of it. The peak of it is you do the karma, but you don't have any desires behind that karma. And it is yourself that is able to take yourself towards Brahman. It's not anybody else who can do that for you. And it is yourself who can take yourself away from Brahman. So you should understand this, that you are your own enemy and you are your own friend, nobody else. It is your choice and it is you who is going to do this. If a person has gotten to the state whereby all his senses are within his control, and I'm using the word control because now we have a general understanding of what control means. It doesn't mean destroying the link between, but it means having that control over your senses through practice, through continuous contemplation, that the senses are there, but the sense objects are there, but your senses will automatically not go there because you have them in control. You know that concentration matters. Krishna is now going on to how concentration can be evolved. This is Dhyana Yoga, chapter 6. Concentration matters a lot. And what you pay attention to also matters a lot. For the person who is doing dhyana yoga, whatever you're paying attention to is what is true for you at that point in time. That is why you're paying attention to it. If you can keep paying attention to one thing constantly, then that is true for you. That is why you're able to pay attention to it constantly. If a person is loving, then he always has an attention towards love. He even gets where a person is trying to play back at him, he finds the love within that person as well, because he's paying attention to it. How to evolve your attention? Step by step. You need to get to a place which is clean and pure. Clean in terms of like your surrounding, and pure in terms of mental action, whereby there is peace prevailing. You cannot be in a place which is always having people coming and going, and you want to meditate and concentrate upon one thing in that place. So find such a place. Then pay attention. Make your mind one for ekagram. When you're able to do that, dharayan achalam sthira, you keep your body, your neck, and your head at par in one line. Then you look in between your eyebrows. When your concentration is between your eyebrows, then all the four directions, they do not matter. All the four directions are not to be looked upon. What happens then? Prashantatma vigatabhir brahmachari vrate sthitah mana sanyamya matsitto yukta asita matparaha. When you're able to concentrate, all your attention at your Agnya chakra, which is in between your eyebrows, then you're able to get to me, because you're yukta. You have all the control. You're yogi now. When you become a yogi, shantim nirvana paramam matsthanam adhigacchati. You get to that bliss that was always there within you, and it comes from Brahman. What should a yogi do? He should not eat too much. He should not also eat less. He should not sleep too much, and he should not also be awake too much. Then what should he do? Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. If you want your yoga to reach the peak, then yukta ahara, you need to keep your ahara yukta in quantity. That is one aspect. Then also the types of food you eat. It shouldn't be lenient towards one type of food only. It should accept a balanced diet, yukta ahara. Then even your vihara, even you're going out in the world, even you're allowing the senses to be attracted by anything in the world, should be yukta. You should not allow them to go everywhere, and you should not constantly bind them within yourself, because that will be an abrupt stop. Yukta vihara, yukta cheshta. You should also do karma, only that which is needed. Don't want to do every karma that you're given. Just do the karma that is truly needed. Then you will be able to figure out what karma takes me towards Brahman, and what karma diverts me from Brahman. Yukta swapna avabodhasya. You need to be knowing how much sleep I need and how much I need to be awake, in the awake state. What will happen then? Yatha deepo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah. Your attention will become like that flame that never diverts. It's always one shikha, ek shikha. It's what they say in Sanskrit. It only has one agra. I don't know how to translate it into English. It will have only one flame. Now, if you have a silent candle whereby there is no air passing by, it just needs the oxygen in the right amount. You can't deprive the oxygen, and you can't have all the oxygen in the world just in one place for the candle. No, it just needs the right amount. That's what Krishna is talking about in the food, in the sleep, in the karma. You just need the right amount. When that happens, you'll also realize that just the right amount of air allows the candle flame to just burn, and it burns nischala. It doesn't move to the right or to the left or up or down. It just burns. It takes the minimum effort. It's like as if it's not doing anything. You know, when a flame is staggering, it feels like as if it has to make an effort to stay alive. But this flame is so swabhavik. It is so from itself that you see that it doesn't even have to make an effort to stay alive. It's just there. And it doesn't move left or right. It is just one concentrated, one point of attention. When that happens, your attention is all one. You get to know that that which is within me is within all. That Brahman which I have seen within myself is within all. Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. He sees all within himself, and he sees himself within all. Such a person has reached the samadrashti of yoga. If a person sees me within himself, he sees me within everyone, and then sees everyone within me. Such a person is always doing the right type of karma. He always has the right type of attention. And he is the yogi, sa-yogi. And if he has the sorrow and the happiness at one part, then sukham va yadi va dukkham sa-yogi paramo matah. I hold that yogi as the highest. Having said all this about that example of the candle flame that doesn't differ, it's always one, doesn't even have to make an effort to stay as it is. Arjuna has a question that the yoga that you have talked about, I cannot even think about it happening to me. I don't see that because my own mind is always going away from where I want it to be. Look at the person who is asking the question. Person of the highest concentration. A person like, we cannot even think about a concentration like Arjuna's. He is asking such a question that I do not see my mind going to that state. because my mind is always going left, right, and center. How is it to control my mind? It is like as if catching onto air. That is how difficult it is. So Krishna is saying, what you're saying is true. Yes. Asanshayam mahabaho. Mano durnigraham chalam. It is very difficult to get the attention of your mind, to get the concentration that you need. However, abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. You'll get it by two things. One is abhyasa, constant practice. Another is vairagya, that which doesn't allow your attention to devour. So one is keeping your attention to one, focused attention. Another is removing the situations where your attention will devour. Removing, like vairagya means not getting attached to the sense objects. When you're not attached to the sense objects, when you're not attached to the desires, what happens? Automatically, you've given the environment for the flame to be one flame, non-staggering. It's just there and full of life. Then Arjuna also has a question. I will go on to that yoga. Yes, I'll start doing it. But then, what if something like the clouds being formed, like in India, you normally see it, that clouds are formed, like the rain clouds are formed. Then what happens is a strong wind comes and just destroys the formed clouds, and then it doesn't rain. A second earlier, a minute earlier, it was like as if it was going to rain, and then a strong wind comes and then it just doesn't rain. What if that happens to me? I try all that I can to get to that level of attention, that level of concentration. Then something comes in my life and I can't pay that much attention to myself. Will it become like those clouds of the rain? What will happen to me? That is what Arjuna is saying. Then Krishna is telling him that that is not what happens. In the cycles, wherever you've left it, that is where you'll get back to it. Parthaneha Parthaneveha namutra vinashastasya vidyate nahi kalyana krit durgatim tata gacchati. Everything that is made and is going towards Brahman, nothing gets destroyed on that path. What happens is when you get back on that path, you start from where you stopped. What happens when you are Jigyasu has been said by Krishna. However, Krishna is now putting this one verse here, that tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi jnanibhyopi matodhikaha karmibhyascha dhiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Krishna is saying that being a yogi, look at all the different types of people, but being a yogi of such impenetrable attention, like nothing can make it stagger, that attention is what dhyana yoga means. That person who can keep one attention, he is far better than a tapasvi. He is also far better than a jnani, a person who is only intellectual. He's also way better than a person who is only doing karma. That is why you should be a yogi. Now, the perspective Krishna is talking from is getting to the siddhi of yoga. When you've gotten to the siddhi of yoga, you have transcended even above karma itself. So you have transcended above the first level where you'll have to start. And The level from which you'll have to start will have the distinctions of karma, of jnana, of tapasya. However, Krishna is saying, when you are a yogi, the ultimate, all these facets, they just dissolve into one. That is why that one yogi is way better than any one who has just started. Yoginam api sarvesham madghatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo matah. Even out of all the yogis, he who keeps his attention upon Brahman. Now you see, a person may have the utmost attention, but then what he pays attention to matters now. If he pays attention to Brahman, only Brahman, not any other siddhi that comes by on his path, but only Brahman, and is always contemplating upon Brahman. Same yukta tamo mata. I hold him high above any other.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. So I'm going to make 3 points. This is about Dhyana Yoga. This is about the concept of concentration. It's the most profound of the concepts in the Indian tradition. What it holds is that our power of paying attention is the core power we have. It is that drishta, it is the witness, it is your awareness, it is your consciousness. That is what we have. That is what we are. And being able to direct it and hold your attention onto something, that is the root of what is good, or what we can do. So this is about Dhyana Yoga. It's one of my favorite chapters in Gita. Gita just begins to introduce this topic. This is a very large topic. Like Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is all about this, developing it out. Second point I want to make is the point that is made about preparation, that you prepare for it, prepare your environment, you act in a way which is consonant with nature, you eat a certain way, you move a certain way, you deal with people in a certain way. And all of these are preparation. Even yoga as is seen in the West, all the exercises, it is one part of this practice whose purpose, the whole purpose of it is to get your body in a shape where it can sit down calmly for a long period of time, easily, so you can concentrate. So everything is for that. That entire practice of a yoga, as is seen in the West, is just that, is to prepare to sit for doing concentration. And preparation is much wider concept than just bodily preparation. The third point I want to make is that of cycles. It doesn't matter where you are. Any progress that you make remains with you in some way. You can go off the path and then you can come back and start over. Now, if you don't do things right, you go away, but it's the cyclical nature that, Indian thought is cyclical, and that you keep progressing. And Yogeshwar has pointed this out many times, that this is true at a psychological level. If you live one day, well, you wake up better day. You wake up in a better state that allows you to do more. This is true of everything that we do. And that is another deep principle here. So those are the 3 points I wanted to make. I want to open it up for any comments or questions. Now, I don't think we will do any more, Yogeshwar. So I think we'll just take questions, general questions. Is that okay? All right. So now you can first focus on questions here on this chapter, but you can go ahead and ask any general questions that you have. So now the standard is a little bit laxer. You can cover, this is a great opportunity of going through all of Gita, raising any questions about Gita that you have. So please, let's go ahead and have a conversation. We'll start with Evanik, followed by Joe. Evanik.
Yeah, so thank you, Yogeshwar. I actually have 2 questions, but I'll circle back around. But the one I wanted to really ask is, when you were talking about what you pay attention to is what is true for you at a certain point in time. My question is, do you pay attention to who you want to be as a person? So if you know something, like if you're paying attention to something that you know you don't want to pay attention to, but yet your attention is drawn there, you're saying it's true in the moment. So could you focus on paying attention to what you want, or is it something like, or is it showing you something, or is it made to reflect something?
So we don't want our attention to go to derail onto something we do not want. Now, also what the Gita says is that don't also allow your attention to go towards something you want at this moment. What will happen is, because you want something, you cannot want something at this moment that you do not see, meaning your own self. You don't want your own self. What you want is something you may become in the future, and that will be in the peripheral, like this much money or this much fame, or even this many qualities that I may get in the future. Maybe I'll become loving, I'll become concentrated on that. What happens at that point? Those are also good qualities. But if you concentrate upon going towards that area, what happens is you get fixated that I have to become such a person. You forget about who you truly are, and you start contemplating about who you want to become. So you leave those intrinsic values that are there within you, and you'll go for something that may not be you. So Gita says, concentrate upon who you are right now. Who you are right now. And who you are right now is the Atman, the Brahman. You are there right now. So you'll get to it if you concentrate upon who you are right now.
Let me elaborate on that, Evanik. That was a great question. One of the core things that Gita is saying is that you are God, that you are Brahma. That's what you are. That is your nature. Now, the way in which Western mind thinks of progress is all peripheral. So it is saying that, okay, I'm going to get from here to there, and it's mostly external. What Gita is saying, it is saying, go for your better self. But your better self is really your real self. That's what it is saying. It's saying, go towards your future self, but the future self is actually in the present. And because you're stuck in the past, because your mind is stuck in the past, you're regarding whatever you have been as yourself. But in the present, you are there. Just look, that's what it is saying. So it is very much, it is not saying that, oh, just be satisfied with what you are. No, it is actually a very effort intensive it is saying that you have that within, and that is you, and you have just forgotten it, and you just need to get back, and you can get back to it now. So it is a very profound way of dealing with that question. Do you have any follow-up thoughts on that, Evanik?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you and both Yogeshwar were saying is really profound. In that, you're taking the action, and just by taking the action, I'm sorry, without being attached to the fruit, will get you to the essence of who you are, and recognizing that you are God. The action that you take will get you closer to there if you're not attached to any fruit. It'll get you to who you are, to your core.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Evanik.
Yeah. And then also another thing to talk about is that when you project yourself into the future, what is happening is that you'll project 2 or 3 good qualities upon yourself into the future. What happens then is all the other qualities are shed aside. You don't get all the good qualities because you can't like really work upon all the good qualities at once. Rather, if you work on yourself right now, you're working upon all the good qualities at this point in time. You're not choosing and picking.
The other point of it is that it is saying that you have to experience your Atma experientially. Whatever conceptions you may form of what you should be is actually lower than your true self. Because in forming the conception of what you should be, you're going to use ideas, and you're going to kind of project some self which is also in the periphery. What it is saying is that just be aware of yourself and relentlessly try to concentrate on it. And that is a much more direct path towards spiritual growth than projecting, okay, I have to do this. But fantastic question, Evanik. Thank you. Next up is Joe.
So yeah, it is this concept of concentration the first time in going through it, it was kind of lost on me because I automatically thought when we were going through it that I thought of something like the virtue of temperance, which is very kind of just not the right way of looking at it. Okay. And I get that. I get the fact that it's a much deeper concept than the ability just to regulate how much one eats or things along those lines. Or it's, as you said, it's an awareness. This is consciousness itself. It's the ability to focus. And this actually gets to the entire point that we made last night, that this is a conversation between Krishna and Arjun, and the will is not imposed. And since the will is not imposed on him, it's because this is a choice. It's because he can concentrate. It's because he can focus. He has his own personal, kind of his own autonomy. And then this is a much deeper point than when I initially read it. So this is a healthy. Maybe this is a question for chapter 13 I can pose.
Sure, go ahead.
Or can I pose it now?
You can pose it now. Go ahead.
We're talking a lot about the relationship that, okay, the God in all of us is in all of us. But there is a relationship between Krishna and Arjun. And so is it more of a relationship with God, or is it the Atman, the God in us? Like there's that kind of, do you see the distinction I'm trying to make, that the between the two? One is integrated more, and then what is a relationship? And these are very, very big distinctions when you, especially in other religions, when you're talking about this.
Wonderful. Let me put it as a question for Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar, what's the nature of the relationship between Krishna and Arjun, given that there is, Atma in each of them, but there is something about Krishna which is different. So what is the relationship between Krishna and Arjun from the point of view of Atma and Brahma and God?
Yes, so what is taken as Atman, first of all, there's one layer of the ego that we say that I am the body. Now that it's easy to pass, that I am not the body. It's easy to decode it, like, am I the body or am I something more than the body? And then we get to the mind, and then the intellect, and the ego goes even beneath that. When we say that I am not the ego as well, this is something profound in a way that I am none of the intellectual, the mind, and the body, none of the above. When you say no to the ego, because the ego is the base of all that. Ahankara in Sanskrit. When ahankara is said that I am not, still there is a hurdle in the middle, which is asmita. That asmita is the attachment to Atman rather than the eternal Brahman. Now, Atman in that perspective is that we look at Arjuna, he knows the perspective of the body, knows the perspective of the mind, also has started getting the approx of the perspective of the body. The perspective of the Atman is also there for Arjun. The perspective of Brahman, however, Arjun has not yet gotten to it, like experientially. What Krishna is taking him towards is that experience, rather than just intellectual here. The difference is more experiential than, like how I would put it is that the experience of Brahman is more like it is true because you have found it, rather than it is true that it is there. It is true that it's there. It's like there's an objective reality to it. But then, if you have not experienced it subjectively, like for your own self, then there is a difference between you and another person, because the other person thinks he is what he is not, whereas you know that you are what you truly are. The differences of the knowledge, the differences of the knowledge rather than the difference of being and its own.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. By the way, Joe, I really loved your questions yesterday. So please ask as many questions. Anybody, just ask as many questions, because this is the last 3 of the meetups of Gita. Okay, so whatever questions you have at whatever level, and at some point Yogeshwar may need to leave, but I really want to hear your questions. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer them, but I will try to answer them. Okay, but so I want to open it up for anybody who wants to ask any question at this point. Okay, and would love to discuss anything that you want to put, because many of the themes that Joe brought up and Brian brought up yesterday, I don't think that we went through it fully. So please feel free to raise whatever you want to raise. Next up is going to be Cheng.
Yeah. So mention about, just have the right amount, not too much, not too little for health, for everything else. And I think Chinese also have that concept of 中庸之道, not extreme to one or the other. What I found is, it's very easy to say, but very hard to do. So I actually, with my own experience, I realized the amount, even for cooking, I'm trying to cook, I cook a lot. But it's like I found I usually get way more food than I need to. And the amount takes so much experience. And I even watch why Americans go so extreme in politics. And they actually said in
Jen,
history,
let's keep it on Gita. Let's keep asking questions.
yeah, that's
on
what I'm
Gita.
trying to say. Yeah. So if from the left and right, they said the politics going extreme 3 times, then they can reach to the middle. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, it's right, just like you made, Anthony asked the question, what do you call the name, like how you understand Brahma, or, so it's like be the moment of yourself and you understand it. It's very hard to do, your moment of self, is that your mind or your body or is your desire? Who is you? And it's very hard to know which is real you or which is the other you, I think it's a great concept. It's just how you actually fund it, how you grasp it.
Thank you, Jen. So I want to follow up on one of Joe's questions from yesterday, and then folks just feel free to ask questions, because we've spent more than 100 and 200 hours discussing this, and there is very deep conversation we have had. So I want to make sure that we tie it up as well as we possibly can. So feel free to ask any questions. So one question that Joe had was about duty and selflessness, right? So what you find is that, see, there is a pattern of the way in which the modern West thinks. This is modernity, okay? How modern ideas work and how Gita works. And there is a difference. So for example, take the concept of duty, right? Most conceptions of duty in the modern Western concepts actually are focused completely on the periphery. So it's like you're in the periphery and there is this other person in the periphery. What do you owe them? Are you going to do something for them or for yourself? That's how it is. Are you being selfless or are you doing what they should do? Now, the profundity of Gita is that it says there is a center. And both you and them are coming from the center. So everything in the periphery is coming from the center. And if you're following the center and you're doing something which is right for the center, it is right for you and right for them at the same time. So it's a solution of that problem at a very deep level. So it's really, really interesting to see how different things are constructed. So just any comments and any questions are welcome. Brian or Penny or both?
So for me today, I must have the chapter 6 is much more amazing for me this time than last time, and I really plan to go back and study it or contemplate it again. From the presentation and discussion today, a couple of key ideas I've gotten that have lead me to a question I'll put at the end. Number one, this focus on patterns that Shrikant mentioned. Use the Gita to see patterns in thought and emotion and action, and not just, I guess, changes in those things over time. But then the other big thing was, and I hadn't really picked this up the first time, is that typically our knowledge or understanding of ourself or our focus on understanding ourself tends to be in a past self and not on the present self. And that's definitely true with me. That was one of my, for me, one of the big breakthroughs was when I listening to Yogeshwar and I saw, yes, I recognize this as a pattern of my past self. And that's kind of encouraged me to go further. But I guess I would say I'm not very good yet at the present self. And this distinction that just was completely lost to me first time around. Now, in terms of trying to concentrate on the present self, I'll say that I have been concentrating on my eating. This is the way I want to ask the question. I have been concentrating on my eating, and I try to eat when I'm hungry, and I eat only what I need, concentrate on what I'm eating and how much. And I'm doing that in the present. And sometimes I see, uh-oh, I've forgotten, and I'm just eating. I'm not aware and thinking. So to me, that's something now that I am aware of myself in the present. And the Gita is giving me a pattern for doing that. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about when you say being aware of yourself in the present?
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, partly yes. I would say yes, you should be aware of the quantity and what you're eating and that as well. But then something I would also, because you're doing it practically, something I would also encourage you to do is that while you're eating, yeah, each and every taste you feel, like really feel it. Don't only say that I want to eat, but then eat and realize the taste that you're getting out of it. Then also, in a way, try to concentrate on who is feeling the taste. Where is the taste being felt? In which part of my tongue is the taste being felt? So really, really try to point out where it is. Then you also try to point out on who is feeling the taste, like experientially, where am I and I'm feeling the taste? That will be more profound in a practice, that yes, you know that you're feeling a taste, and then who is feeling the taste? And then also, when you're hungry, know you're hungry, then ask yourself, who is feeling the hunger? Who is the I who is feeling the hunger? Even when you're full, like you're eating and I'm now full. Who is it that is full? Who am I? And then slowly, it won't happen in a day or two, but then that concentration, then it becomes more attentive. Like you can pay more attention to something rather than before. So as days pass and you're able to be more attentive to who is being able to test or who is feeling the hunger, then you slowly come to that point.
Thank you.
I want to ask Yogeshwar, I want to ask you one more thing. Brian made this beautiful observation of past self and present self, that most people identify themselves with the past self. So can you talk a little bit about this concept of present self and distinguishing it from the past self?
So the past self in context is the ideas and the memories that we have about ourselves. At some situation, I was angry, or at some situation, I was feeling love. Or even that I myself, as a personality, I have a loving personality. That is gotten from the past. Not necessarily that you'll see that this is so bad. Like if you have a loving personality, it's not so bad. But then what the Gita is trying to say is that that is fine. What you've attained is fine so far. But be in the present, know who you are right now, rather than who you were in the past. Because if you know who you are right now, you can work on it. You can't work on anything that was there in the past. Then another thing to distinguish is also, I myself, because it's really hard to stay in the present. So what will happen if you remove the past, the future will hop in. Like you'll start thinking about how should I be in the future, or what should I do to become better in the future. What happens is the underlying thought about being better in the future. So that betterness, being better, it has some patterns that are also tied back to the past. Because what you've experienced in the past is who you'll reflect into the future. That I was not able to do this better in the past, so let me do it better in the future. What you're doing into the future is taking your past experiences and trying to make them better in the future. So even when you're doing the future, you're using your past information to build the future up. Or you're saying that if I get into some future situations which I have not come up in the past, which you can see in other people, so you're going to try to build the future in a way. So what the Gita is saying is that no future, because situations may not pan out as you may like, or the past self may not help you to build a better future. Even remove the past. Why remove the past? Not because it's not important. It is truly important. That's where you'll start from. But then when you're on your journey, when you're saying that I am a loving person, will you be able to manifest more love? Or will you now just leave the love and say, let me pursue another great quality that I will want? You know, what is happening is you're still playing in qualities. Like the qualities are there, they're good and bad. I'm not saying they're not. But then you're still playing within the qualities. You've not yet known who you truly are. That's still missing in the context. However, when you know who you truly are, like right now, who you are, you realize that, yes, I am such and such qualities, but those qualities are not me. They're from the past. I am such and such a temperament. Is that me, or is that the temperament? So also that is out, because that temperament is from the past. Each and everything, all your thoughts, like decode them in such a way that, is that thought me, or is that question me? Even that, is that question mine? Really, truly, is that question mine? Or is it a question that I've gotten from somebody else in the past, or I've read from a book? That question should be yours. And even when the question is yours, realize that the question is not me. Question is different. And that realization only comes when you're in the present, like you're thinking about now, what is happening right now. If I'm not thinking about what is happening right now, I cannot know that, is this question me or not me? Is this question mine or not mine? Is this thought mine or not mine? Or is this kind of quality me or not me? Because whenever you're thinking about the past and the future, you're going to go into the peripheral. It's only when you're thinking about the present narrowly, like because the present is so narrow, to stay there, it's like Shurasya Dhara Nishita Duratya. This is an Upanishad Vakya. It's like staying on that thin line of the sword. It's so sharp, and it's, first of all, it's sharp, so it's difficult to stay there. Another, that there's no place to stay. It's that thin line that you have to stay upon. At any one point in time, you may go in the past or in the future. So that thin line is what is being talked about.
Yogeshwar, I want to ask you one more thing. The point of attention, one beautiful point you made is that what you pay attention to is profoundly important, because that's really going to shape you. So talk a little bit about it. It's like, what can you tell by, like, if you notice you're paying attention to something, like what is the relevance of it to you? And so how do you think of it? Like there is somebody who says, you become what you pay attention to. It's like, if you keep focusing on something, you're going to move in that direction. So can you talk a little bit about it?
So about paying attention, this is mostly of yoga, mostly of dhyana yoga, the practices of yoga. When you know the philosophy right, you get to this concept deeply, that what you're paying attention to is what is true for you at that one point in time. And attention can always be paid right now. Like you cannot pay attention in the past or the future. Attention is there right now. And you have to pay attention right now in this one moment. So that is what they do with Tratak. That is what they do with mindful listening. So they're paying attention. What happens when you're paying attention? Obviously you'll pay attention first to an object that is outside you. When you pay attention to something that is outside you, for example, a person even, you pay attention to a person. What is he doing? How does he live? Now, what happens is slowly, and you may not even notice it, but his normal life may not enter you, but his subtle qualities, like if that person is loving, you'll start having that scent. That scent will just move on to you, that you'll start becoming loving. You don't know how. You've not changed any lifestyle. You're living your life as it was. But then when you pay attention to a person, you get such qualities of the person. If you're paying, now that is a person. Now, if you're paying attention to a particular quality, then even that quality.
Oh, looks like there is an internet problem. Okay. Give me a second. Okay. I think Yogeshwar will come back. Joe, you had something. Go ahead.
It's a little bit off topic.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm looking past at our Gospel of John diagrams, and some of it where we have the further that you're getting away from God, the further you're getting away from the center. And so that's one of the diagrams that I have. But the question I have is that the fundamental difference, and I don't know I really want to hash this out, is that Christianity has this external God imposing the will onto the individual, right? It's less of a conversation. Is that, am I framing that correctly or not? And then
I would not, I mean, it's Christianity. Look, I mean, my understanding of Christianity is not that good. I would say that is true of the Old Testament. The New Testament, I don't see that. I see the prime mover, like the Old Testament, God is up there and he is telling you through the prophets and through the commandments what you should do, and you are following the law. That is the relationship. In the New Testament, the locus moves inside. And so I see very similar things happening, especially in the Gospel of John. Okay. In the Gospel of John, it is very, very prominent that the idea is that you have Holy Spirit in you, which is basically love of God. And you are like children of God, and you're doing, acting out of that. So I see that in the Old Testament. What I see in the New Testament is kind of analogous to it. It's like the only difference that I see is that the Gita talks about multiple paths, whereas,
Right.
Gospel of John would say that there is the way, there is the word, there is Jesus, and that is the path. Now, in some ways, it is a very forgiving path. It is a path. The idea that you can always repent, you can always say, look, I screwed up, and you can start over. That is there. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but please go on.
No, you didn't interrupt. You answered the question, because the reason why I brought this up was because what Yogeshwar had just provided me with my previous question was a more integrated understanding of God and the relationship with it. And then there's multiple paths, and it seems much deeper than this other. And I'm not it's not a competition.
No, you can do that. That's no problem at all. The interesting thing, it's like the reason I'm smiling is that, like, I am intimately familiar because of my cultural background with the Indian thought. And I am as fascinated with the Gospel of John as you guys are fascinated about Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, this is your diagram.
Like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's like there is a deep commonality between them, and there are differences between them. And many of those differences are material. There is no question about that either. But I think, at least I'm struggling to understand each of them. And I just see so much depth in each of them. And so I don't know. Let's see. Yogeshwar, are you back?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So two things. If you want to continue what you were saying, you were you got up, and then I'll try to phrase Joe's question, and then we can go from there. Go ahead.
Okay. So attention. So sometimes what happens is we feel that what I am looking at doesn't affect me. For example, forms of entertainment or forms of adverts that come up. But deep down, like in your subconscious, there is that part that affects you. It doesn't affect you right now, maybe. But then if you're constantly having that in front of you, then there is that aspect of you that leans towards that. You feel that maybe there's something good in it, and you start going towards that path. Then also another thing is that when you stay around a person who has reached Brahman, or who has immense love, who has immense like care and stuff, you also have those qualities. Like as we know, even in normal psychology, like if a child has a good bring up, then there are very low chances of him going into depression, into him going into sorrow, and him thinking that the world itself is so bad. But if his bringing up is like he's being neglected, he's constantly being like punished for what he's not done, and his parents are not at par with him, then what happens when he grows up is the same thing that he projects onto the world. So what he has paid attention to at the beginning, you may feel that this is abstract, like he pays attention to some things in the past, and then he manifests them somewhat differently. Like the neglect, him being neglected, or him being punished, will now go into depression, or him seeing the world as what his parents showed him is. So those patterns you can see, that what happens to you you'll project it into the world. And that anything that happens to you, you're paying attention to it because you're affected by it, by your emotions, you're affected by it, by a thought. So anything, it stays within you as a sanskara.
Wonderful. One more question. This is a question that Joe was asking, but I'm going to rephrase it in a very different way. You attended many of the Gospel of John meetups. What was your reaction? What did you get from the Gospel of John meetups? What were your impressions?
So my impression from the Gospel of John, first of all, I had not looked at it from that perspective before, because I've also read the Bible before. I was brought up in a Catholic school and read the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament alike. Now, first of all, I got to understand that there is a perspective in the New Testament that, I don't know, is it because I am from this background, like the Gita and the Indian background, that I see it in the Bible, or is it there in the Bible? I'm not really sure about that. But then I see a perspective that is in relation to that Brahman that is being talked about. Not only like there is an aspect of Atman, yes, but there's also that aspect of Brahman, that constant fountain that is there within your heart, and it's continuously flowing. There's no stop, there's no start and end to it. It's a continuous fountain. So those sorts of aspects that were in the Bible, they were pointing towards that eternal Brahman. And I don't know whether it is this, like I'm biased because of the like my tradition, or is it there? I cannot now really tell.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yogeshwar. I have the same identical view, that I see it as being the same. I'm more imprecise in my words, and I try to just say what I think and but I certainly see that a very deep commonality, and especially in the New Testament. I don't see that much in the Old Testament, but in New Testament, especially as presented in Gospel of John, because it's like even the beginning itself, it's just right there. So thank you. Next up is Jang. Jang, what's your question?
Yeah, you mentioned about the attention, what it could become, what they pay attention to. And I was just listening to the NPR interview a psychiatrist, and he said people pay attention to different things because their brain structured differently. Yep. So I just wonder, is that maybe past based on their past experience? But we know people grow up from the same abusive family. One person maybe become very loving father, another person become very abusive. So I just wonder, is that the brain we born with, or is that our environment form it? How much control we have it about what we pay attention to.
Thank you. So so let's see what Gita has to say about it, because that's what we're focused on. So Gita would say that, there would be, that there are individual differences in people. We start wherever we start. And that, the thing that Gita really focuses on, Indian thought focuses on, is the ability that you have, this power of concentration that you have. And then it also has the entire psychology. I recommend, I know that you've not listened to most of the Gita meetups, but I would recommend, the discussion of gunas, the discussion of getting to know your swabhav, of kind of getting to know who you are naturally, what is your natural proclivities, working with it. And then it has these three-pronged approach of, moving towards the Brahman through work, through action, through thought, and through emotion. So it's that combination that Gita handles. All right. This is I am really it's almost 12 o'clock. So but at the same time, I'm a little bit nostalgic here. So I don't know. Yogeshwar, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to keep you longer than you have to, but you are welcome to stay. But if there is anybody, especially people who have been in this meetup for a long time, of who have been with us, any questions? So there are all kinds of. I really liked Brian's observation about this, so I want to connect it up to this point about modern man looking at Gita, right? We live in 21st century America, and we are looking at Gita. There is an entire conceptual context that we have. People who are used to intellectual stuff, they have, so there are some common things that are there that actually stop you from understanding all these three works actually. Okay, very good, 9:30, 12 o'clock. Okay, so Yogeshwar will be leaving in about 5 minutes. Yogeshwar, then let me give you the last word on this one, then I'll continue with anybody who wants to stay on. And I'm going to be talking about the kind of common ideas, like central ideas of modern thinking that I see, and how these ideas of all these three works are different. And so what kind of adjustment you have to do to even grasp it. Yogeshwar, so firstly, I want to say that I think these summaries are working well. So we finished up to chapter 6. So we got 10 more chapters to go. No, wait a minute, 12 more chapters to go, right? So we'll have to finish about 6 chapters per meetup. And we will do that. We'll, one way or the other, we will do that. So do you have anything that you want to say?
No, not really.
Okay. So let me start by talking about it. So there are so many issues here. Okay. Let me start with some of the biggest ones. The biggest one is that most of Western thought is Platonic. And that division, that Platonicness, was exacerbated by Descartes in modern times, which separates the mind and the body. It separates the material world and the spiritual world. It says those two are separate. And you can choose this or you can choose that. The idea of Gita, Brahma, is the unity of them. That the center is shaping the world. Its eternal principles shape the world. And you see the eternal principles in all of the world. So that is so radically different than modern thought that most people can't get that. So for example, what are the consequences of it? So the best capturing of this view, the Gita view, is in the Western context, is by Louis Sullivan, when he says that life began to break in upon him, and a continuous breaking in from the outside and breaking out from the inside was to shape his destiny. So you have to let the world is yours. It is you. So you are open to the world. You're taking all of the world in. You're witnessing all the world as if it is yours. And then you are acting to, in the world, to the world, from the center. And there is this continuous loop going on. And this entire loop is reality. The world and the center and the movement between the two. So the center is stable. All kinds of things are happening in the world. This is the Advaita view. So that means just one, not two. Advaita means not two. Most of modern thought is dualistic. And what happens is that since Industrial Revolution, we have focused on the matter part. And we've gotten very, 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 very good at it. And we have forgotten the spiritual part. We've forgotten the center. We have lost track of it. It's not as if it was never there. You can see it. If you go back to Aristotle, you see it. If you go back to Gospel of John, you can see it. So it is not true. In Aquinas, you can see it. So West has had that, but the modern West doesn't have that. That is what makes it very hard to grasp. So any concept which is taken from it, like for example, Brian put it, see, I really like how honestly people are dealing with this, right? Brian put it very beautifully. He says, you know, when I try to connect concepts in Gita with my other concepts, I have trouble. But I try to look at it by itself and then try to relate it to my experience to see what is working. See, this is actually Aristotelian. This is actually scientific way of looking at ideas. It is going back and forth from percepts to concepts. And it is a fundamental way of learning, actual genuine learning. At the same time, when he starts to talk, okay, I don't know whether it is a construction or not. Now, the idea of like Descartes is that all ideas are constructed by your mind, and it's not connected to your body. So there is all kinds of interesting stuff. So that's what I wanted to say. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if any of you would like to comment on that. So firstly, Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think the one way your comment has helped me, immediately is when I think about this exercise of eating.
Yes. And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's go back and forth so it is very effective. I love the example of eating because that's exactly how you do things. Like, because see, eating is a fantastic example. Firstly, you saw that Gita actually talks about eating, sattvic eating. Sattvic eating means eating in order to support your life. Like when you are saying that you watch what you eat and you eat when you're hungry, and when you don't overeat, you eat when it is enough. So just look at it from the quantity perspective, right? So firstly, you're being present, you're observing what is going on. When you overeat, what happens is that you are actually not aware. You're just eating, you're just going through action. So it's a great example of applying consciousness to that. But more than that, it actually, because it's a good thing, it will help you elsewhere. Like if you're eating like that, your ability to focus is better throughout the day. Your health is better. So as a result of that, you can do more. Sorry about the interruption. Please go on.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I would add to that this last point you made, that these principles create the world. And I think that's also demonstrated in eating. Because I know that, let's say that the right way to eat is the Tao. And if I eat the right way, there is a right way to eat, let's call that the Tao. And if I eat the right way, then I'll be healthy. So that's the way of the Tao.
Yes.
But if I interrupt, I don't attend to the Tao in the present, I'm not attentive or aware of the Tao in the present, and I eat kind of the way I, in my own egoistical way, want to eat without regard for the Tao, then I will gain weight, or I will have upset stomach or too much acid. All these things happen. Lets me know that I'm not in the Tao, and in that way, this principle is creating my world in my body in a very rich way.
Exactly. No, beautifully put. Because what you're doing is that when you are eating, because I just feel like eating, you are focused on these 10,000 things, and you are attached to those 10,000 things. When you are saying, how should I be eating in order to be healthy? You're actually focused on the nature of your body, and you're acting in accordance with the nature of the body. And as a result, the action is better. So you are, so it's beautifully put. Yeah, go on.
And then there's one more thing to it. That's the Tao, but then you add to it the this chapter 6, when I've created the body, let's just say in the way of the Tao, then as described, then I can hold my flame still,
Yes,
and I can concentrate. And so that's a further, benefit or purpose outcome from the following the Tao.
absolutely. I will say two things here. What it is showing is that the physical action, your emotions, and your thought, and your ability to be conscious are all connected. So those are the karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and dhyana yoga. They're all connected, and they all proceed together forward. Second point I want to make is that just like the universal principle is creating the world, that universal principle is derived from the world. So you observe the world, and this is very much of the core science approach. You are looking at nature, you're abstracting from it universal principles, and then you're acting on it to be effective in the world. That loop is exactly the science and technology loop of using data. This is the OODA loop of observe, orient, decide, and act. You're going through that process, and it's just one loop. There is no like two separate things that don't talk to each other. No. That orientation is shaped by the observation and can only proceed through action. So it's a loop. Wonderful. Let's go to Joe, and I can, if you have more, we'll come back. Let's go with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
There's a couple things that you said that were coming to mind.
Mhm.
One was this is the importance of understanding the root cause of our desires as well.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, just take the example of eating. Well, why are you desiring this? I mean, it could be because of you're trying to satisfy something else, and understanding that allows you to at least understand, the right action to take. So that's it could be, as Yogeshwar said, depressive eating.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to comment. Let's go back and forth. That's the most effective. So what I will say is that, look, the idea of sthita prajna, the idea of witness, is basically that you are conscious and you can watch yourself and saying, okay, what are you doing? What happens when you overeat or do something like that is that you're just caught up in that action and you have no awareness of what you're doing. Just this fact of development of this witness, ability to concentrate, ability of paying attention, that is a starting point in noticing what you're doing, noticing what you're doing wrong, and changing it. So in that sense, it is the change between being asleep and awake.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, it's observation. I mean, and this gets into back to the idea of the OODA loop. I mean, essentially, so how to observe and reorient yourself. And this idea of a witness, and this is a very deep concept now. in reading about psychology recently, this even idea of self-esteem and self, and how that actually fits in like the way people attribute self-esteem to things like in the periphery or versus actually looking internally. And it's a very big problem in psychology. Well, not, it's a big problem for the individual, not really the problem for psychology.
Yeah, this is interesting, a question about self-esteem. So I'll say just one thing. See, what happens is that most people, they tie their self-esteem to something in the periphery.
Right.
So they are like proud of who they are, their family, what they have achieved in their work, how they dress, all of it in the periphery, or what thoughts that they have thought of, right? Whereas here, actually the concept of self is far more grander, and it is far more simpler. It's saying that you are that, and you are already that, except that you've forgotten it, that you are kind of going away looking for who you are, not really paying attention to the core. So let me go to Andrea and I'll come back. You please ask as many questions. Andrea, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yes,
No problem.
I'm trying to, doesn't work here, the camera. Okay. So I just want to add, because, when you talk about this getting disconnected, the mind and the body, all right, we become fragmented. And in a way, we lose the agency of ourselves, of, our body. And in the same time, it's what you're saying, right? We start lingering to the periphery. So that's why we see the commodification of the body, because it's completely disconnected with the mind, and we have lost that connection. So it's easier for the others to start controlling your body, because there is no connection between your body and mind. That's why you see mental health, physical health completely disconnected, because people cannot see themselves in union with their inner self. So this is part of some diseases, right, that we can see. So yeah. I find that it's interesting, because we lose the connection with ourselves and with the nature inside of us.
Yeah, beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you. Because that, see what, let me see. You put it very nicely. The idea is that the fascinating thing here is that we are mostly sleepwalking, and we are dealing with other people who are also sleepwalking. And then what happens is that people are just pushing each other here and there, because what happens is that when you're in that state, that you are all in the periphery, then it's a zero-sum game. And people are trying to, it's always a win-lose kind of relationship. And people are, they don't see, they are attached to whatever they have, and they are not really focused on what can be done, because like the real power is there at the core of your being. So they say that, okay, this is all that is there. If the other person gets something, that means I will lose. So then there is this win-lose kind of an approach. Now contrast that with the approach of Gita, with the Namaste, where you're saying the God in me greets the God in you. Now that is so profound, and it solves all these social problems in one stroke. Because what it is doing is that it is acknowledging the deep reality of yourself and the other person. And then suddenly you realize that whatever interaction you have is a win-win interaction, because both actually are trying to do the right thing. And then what can be done with such an interaction is so much more. It's like orders of magnitude more than trying to divvy up whatever things that both parties are attached to. So it just formulates the question, formulates the problem so differently and so much more powerfully. So thank you. Thank you.
I just want to add something, because for me, something that I'm very critical about, this is where for me, Western medicine misses the point.
Absolutely.
I don't want to go more, but for me, that
No. That's absolutely true. There is a connection between your consciousness, your spirit, your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and you and other people, you and the kind of environment in which you live. There is all kinds of things going back and forth. And when, like, basically what the Western medicine has done is that it took the success of Newton in trying to figure out how billiard balls work, and then said that, okay, life is also like that. So let me find, oh, that's wrong. Let me just hit it with this. Little realizing that it's a living system and it works. There is a structure to it and it works in a certain way. And you have to understand it. You have to work with it in order to make fundamental changes in it. Otherwise, you are just trying to fix the symptom or alleviate the symptom temporarily while causing damage to the whole system. So thank you very much. Joe, go ahead.
Now, it's something that actually I read that same approach has been applied to, and I won't go there, economic models. But anyway, I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay.
But coming back to what you were originally talking about with this, the idea of the Aristotelian approach. So the upshot of that, though, is then we are very good at, if we're looking at, we lose the purpose understanding of the final cause, right? In this process, that's what we lose in that process.
You lose many things, because what happens is that the modern world focuses on the efficient cause,
right,
and the material cause.
Right.
What it doesn't focus on is final cause and formal cause.
Right.
So formal cause asks the question, what is it? Like, what is life? What is language? What is thought? What is the spirit? Now, these questions are not regarded as valid questions in modern time, or
Right.
whatever is being provided is a very superficial thing. It doesn't really go to the heart of the issue. And it doesn't look at the final cause. What are you doing this for? What is the ultimate goal that that you should be going towards? Again, there is this difference between facts and values, which also comes from the modern times, because it's, values is in the consciousness, matter of spirit, whereas facts are out there in the world. So it just divides things. So you have the way in which I find one of the author puts it very beautifully. So you take a living man and you think of him as a corpse and a ghost, neither of which are living. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean it's interesting, because there are practical implications too. And even when you're talking about facts, it's almost like the modern world doesn't necessarily believe in truth.
That's right. So we're looking at this book, like clear and simple as the truth. It's really focused on reality. So it doesn't believe in reality.
Right.
By the way, it is not. I mean, if you look at like early scientists like Lavoisier,
Mhm.
Newton, Darwin, oh, they have a concept of truth. They have a concept of reality. They are very much in this loop of looking at observations, forming ideas, testing them out, showing, demonstrating. So it's like they are in this loop, continue. That's how they proceed. It is the same issue of the periphery and the center. They can operate from the center. That's why they produce the ideas. People in the modern times are taking the results of their ideas as ideas and goods that have been produced as a result of that. And they're saying goods are here, ideas are here. And then that is just pure periphery. And that's just they have the forms, they don't have the function. So those forms actually kill the function.
Right.
Those forms must follow the function. And if you make forms the primary, then you don't have the function. All right, I am, I'm just so delighted.
It's interesting because I really quickly, I just see how this is now Ayn Rand was an Aristotelian. It makes sense that the way she would even write about Louis Sullivan and then how all that was integrated in her
But
thinking.
Louis Sullivan is a far greater Aristotelian than her.
Oh
Far,
yeah, definitely.
because like the fluidity with which he goes back and forth between function and form, I mean, that is just incredible.
Right. It's when it's real too. I mean, it's not just theoretical like Ayn Rand's is more.
And you can see it in Gita. Again, I love the fluidity of Gita. It's like, it's wonderful going through these chapters again, because what I'm getting here is just how beautifully it has been presented. Because now that we have come to the end, we have seen everything that is coming. You go to an earlier chapter and say, oh, look at how he's saying it. And look at how it is going to add up. He has made those same points again and again in so many different ways. It's very simple what he's trying to say. And it's said, so beautifully. All right, folks. So this has been so incredible. I am really, it's like, I'm going to miss this Gita meetups.
Me too.
So much. So, all right. Evanik, any last thoughts from you?
No, I've just been listening in on what everybody's been saying. Probably because my mind's fading a little bit.
Yes.
But I think the biggest thing that I got is the win-win formula.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to go to economics, especially because I don't know it very well. But it's always the concept of scarce, like this concept of lack of things, like scarcity. And maybe we hold on to so many things because we think, it's going to be taken away from us. And, if we let go of the concept and know that what we have is enough and who we are is enough, then I think it just goes into, I guess it just goes into, for me, when you know you're enough and you know you have enough and you know you can be enough, it's like, it just takes away the scarcity of things, especially living in some place like America. Most of us have more than what we need, but we still want to obtain more because of that lack of scarcity mindset. So I think all of these meetups, especially the Gita meetups, teach us how to break that.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. So let's see. So folks, I have to tell you, I'm about to announce an incredible series of meetups. I will be announcing it shortly. Let me go ahead. It's going to be, Mark Stallman is going to be back.
Oh, cool.
And it's going to be something far greater than, far more, I wouldn't say greater because he's His meetups have been just incredible, but this is going to be something else. It is going to be bringing together some of the themes that he has been talking about, and he's teaming up with Frank Butler, who heads the Great Ideas program, the Great Books program at University of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of combination of the two. So it's going to be something. It's going to be a short series. It starts on October 16th. So 2 weeks from now. So I better go ahead and announce it. And it's going to be, I think, at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. That's the plan. All right. So, but we will have recordings, Joe. So don't worry.
Yeah, because I had a
But
I
it's
can log in
going
for
to be
one.
something. It's going to be something. So really looking forward to it. It's going to be just 4 sessions. And we'll be covering some of the biggest themes that he has covered. And I'm going to write it up tonight, and I'll be announcing it tonight. All right. Thank you,
Cool.
folks.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Night.
Bye, Brian.
Night.
Good night.